Volkswagen's second generation Golf GTE continues to offer a more dynamic, if rather pricey, take on plug-in hybrid technology, combining sporty styling and pokey petrol power along with real-world battery range and frugality. With the Mark II version of this PHEV model, the bigger 13 kWh battery has 50% more energy capacity than before, allowing for an electric-only range of up to 40 miles. The idea here is to deliver GTI responsiveness along with ID3 style EV sustainability. If Volkswagen has done just that, then this could very well be the ultimate all-round family hatch.
Hybrid cars used to be dull, compromised, soulless things. In buying one, you sacrificed driving enjoyment for eco-minded technology, and you positioned yourself amongst smug, green-minded folk. It isn't like that anymore, or at least it doesn't need to be, according at least to this car, the second generation version of Volkswagen's Golf GTE. This Mark II GTE, launched early in 2020, succeeds an original model that was one of the market's very first plug-in hybrids when it was first launched back in late 2014. This replacement's key change is a lithium-ion battery, which is twice as large, and that usefully extends the WLTP-rated all-electric driving range to 40 miles. Plus, energy deployment can now be predictive, taking into account GPS data. And of course, there are all the advantages of the latest Mark 8 Golf model line. If you're the sort of buyer who might previously have been steered towards the economy of a Golf GTD diesel, but secretly hankered after the smoothness of the GTI, then this GTE could be the perfect solution. So, what's it like? Well, from start off, the experience of this plug-in model is very similar to that of a full EV because, provided the battery is charged up, you'll be greeted with the eco-minded sound of silence once you press the power button and move away. That's because the Golf GTE always starts off in its all-electric E mode. That happens with Prius-like self-charging hybrids too, but with those cars, the engine chips in almost immediately you get underway. This PHEV Golf, in contrast, has a pleasing tendency to want to stay battery-powered for as long as possible. The drive only switches to the car's more customary hybrid setting, and now that sees the engine and the battery working in tandem if the energy capacity of the battery drops below a certain level or if the speed rises above 80 miles an hour. You can switch between E mode and hybrid manually using the auto gear selector. If you own the previous generation version of this electrified Golf, then you might already be familiar with all of that. And certainly there is plenty that is familiar about the petrol part of this model's engineering recipe because it really hasn't changed very much from that of the first generation version of this model, which is a bit surprising given that its essential basics date back a decade or so. The 1.4 litre TSI 150 PS petrol engine and 6-speed Dsg Auto Gearbox were updated years ago in conventional combustion Golfs to a 1.5 litre TSI and a 7-speed DSG, but the old mechanicals continue here. Fortunately though, the electrified parts are a bit more up to date. There are two that you mainly need to know about. The electric motor, which puts out 109 PS now, that's 9 PS more than before, and the lithium-ion battery that powers it, which has risen from 9 kilowatt-hours to 13 kilowatt-hours in size, which makes its energy capacity 50% bigger than the one used in the first generation version of this model. Hence the big step up in all-electric driving range capability, which Volkswagen wants you to know about. The old model's range was quoted at 31 miles, but that was under the old NEDC measuring cycle, so the real-world figure was significantly less. Under more realistic and stringent WLTP testing, this Mark II version has a rated figure of 40 miles. Now, we haven't managed that in this test, but we have done enough driving to know that over 30 miles is a regularly achievable figure. That's the kind of capability that would have been a distant dream in the old car. As before, the hybrid mode also gives you a battery hold option, so you can save battery charge for later in the trip, say for urban driving that you might want to do at the end of a lengthy journey. And there is still a battery charge option, which allows you to charge up the battery via the TSI engine, although it is, of course, much more efficient to charge the battery from a plug point. Plus, again, as before, there is also a GTE mode, which focuses the engine for sportier driving. We couldn't resist punching the GTE button as soon as we found ourselves some empty roads in this Golf. You'll probably want to do that too. The idea is that in doing that, you'll release this car's inner shopping rocket. When the mode activates, the steering, the throttle response and the gear changes all get sportier, as does the engine note, but more importantly, the petrol engine and the electric motor combine together, and that powers you to 62 miles an hour in 6.7 seconds on the way to a top speed of 140 miles an hour. So yes, this PHEV Volkswagen can be quite sporty. The Volkswagen brand wants to continue to give this plug-in Golf, which is why the GTE is its headline PHEV Golf model. However, the brand also offers a Golf E hybrid variant with a 204 PS version of the same PHEV powertrain, which has a 44-mile WLTP-rated driving range. With this Golf GTE, the total system output is a meaty 245 PS. That's the same as a GTI, although with all the PHEV paraphernalia to carry about, doesn't go quite like a GTI, of course. That's mainly because the 1624 kilo curb weight of this plug-in variant makes this 176 kilos heavier than the GTI. If you happen to be trying the two variants back to back, you probably wouldn't really notice the extra bulk in a straight line. This GTE's rapid rest to 62 sprint figure is only 0.4 of a second slower than the GTI, but predictably it'd be a lot more obvious if you were minded to start throwing the thing about. Before testing this GTE, we did wonder about that because Volkswagen told us that the PHEV powertrain layout here, a lithium-ion battery positioned under the rear seat and the fuel tank relocated to a position underneath the boot floor, actually gives this plug-in model a more favourable front-to-rear weight distribution than the GTI. Well, it doesn't really feel like that when you pitch this GTE into a bend. There certainly isn't quite the same lithe, agile feel that characterises Volkswagen's classic hot hatch, and the steering's not quite as feelsome either, so it's just as well that pushing through the corners is something that a typical GTE customer is unlikely to frequently want to do. Still, if you do find yourself running late on a twisting secondary route, we think that you will at least find this second generation model a slightly more dynamic partner than its PHEV predecessor. That's due to the installation of a new driving dynamics control system known as the Vehicle Dynamics Manager. This controls the XDS torque vectoring system and it oversees the car's every dynamic variable, a little bit like a conductor and an orchestra, and then alters the drivetrain, the suspension and steering to get the nose into and around each turn more quickly and safely. We think, though, that you'll only get the full benefit of this setup if you pay the extra that Volkswagen wants for the optional DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control Adaptive Damping setup, and that's because the Vehicle Dynamics Manager has been designed specifically to work with it. DCC fitted here gives you yet more modes, Sport, Normal and Comfort, plus an individual menu too, and it's being completely reworked for this second generation model, and to good effect too. In the past we have sometimes struggled to feel very much of a change between the Sport and the Comfort extremes. Now though, the difference is really clear. In Sport, the steering and the ride both firm up, the Dsg transmission becomes a bit more aggressive, and a bit more artificial sound gets pumped into the cabin via the stereo speakers. You can, by the way, activate Sport when you are in all-electric mode, in which setting the top speed will be 81 miles an hour. Now that is significantly higher than the previous generation model could manage, but it's almost totally irrelevant because if you attempt to replicate that with any regularity, then your electrified driving range will fall through the floor. What else might you need to know? Well, the brake pedal still takes a bit of getting used to. As with the previous generation GTE, the top of the travel feels largely redundant. And on the subject of braking, it is possible to alter levels of brake energy recuperation to prolong battery life, but you don't do that with the steering wheel paddles as you would with a full EV Volkswagen. Instead, there is a selectable center stack screen which gives you 3 recuperation options. There are extreme, high and low options, but most of the time, of course, you'll probably leave the car to do all its own thing in the 3rd auto setting. And this car does its own thing rather cleverly in lots of areas. Take the sophisticated predictive technology, for example, which draws from the front camera system, GPS data, and a host of sensors. Using this data, whenever route guidance is activated in the navigation system, a clever battery manager is able to predictively take into account the road and topographical data to ensure optimum electrical range and the most efficient use of the battery energy throughout the journey. We've also noticed that Volkswagen has listened to some of our earlier criticisms of the Dsg Auto Gearbox. This dual clutch transmission now has a smoother action and it exhibits less shunt under light throttle loads in stop-start town traffic, although some of its downshifts can still be a bit hesitant. Yes, stop-start town traffic. Well, typical owners will probably spend quite a lot of time in that, at which point, if they've tried a conventional combustion engine version of this Golf, they might notice that this GTE version's extra weight makes the ride over poor surfaces not quite as supple and cosseting. They might, by the way, also notice the standard E-sound, which all electrified cars have to have when they're running in battery mode at low speeds, so as to alert pedestrians of the car's impending approach. You do wonder, though, why Volkswagen doesn't try to make it a bit more pleasant to the ear, as, for example, Fiat has tried to do with their EVs. Out on the open road, things are just as they are with any other well-specified Golf, which means you'll get exemplary refinement and lots of clever tech, things like the IQ Light Intelligent Matrix headlights, which adapt their beams to road conditions and surrounding traffic. And the brand's clever new travel assist setup too, which enables partially assisted so-called level 2 autonomous driving. Now, the old model's traffic jam assist, that had an element of this. That paired ACC technology with lane assist adaptive lane guidance, so the car could effectively drive itself in traffic queues. But because that tech would only work at up to 37 miles an hour, it was only good for urban conditions. So Volkswagen has developed travel assist from it, and that also works with ACC and lane assist, but it provides partially assisted driving at highway speeds of up to 130 miles an hour. And that's made possible by the integration of 2 things. The first is the predictive technology that we referred to earlier. Now, that allows a car to anticipate and adapt in advance for things like turns, roundabouts, traffic lights and hold-ups. And the second is the addition here of a new capacitive steering wheel, which has to sense your hands on it. Otherwise, if the warnings are ignored, it'll disable all the drive systems and bring the car to the side of the road in a gradual stop. It's all very clever, and it's indicative of the fact that despite the sporty styling here, this Golf GTE's most compelling attributes don't really have very much to do at all with sportiness. Once you accept that and you begin to appreciate this Golf for what it is, rather than picking holes in what it isn't, you can settle back and just enjoy a supremely comfortable, rapid, refined and astonishingly efficient means of everyday transport. There's a different kind of driving satisfaction in play here. It's the sort of thing that lies in the way, for example, that we've been playing with the hybrid drive modes and switching between the E mode and the battery charge settings, driving the car on electric power in town and then aggressively charging the batteries when the petrol engine is switched on. It certainly does seem a shame not to drive this Volkswagen as much as possible on electric power. That is, after all, when it seems most special. As before, a big part of this GTE model's appeal is that it doesn't look that much different to a Golf GTI. You'd certainly be hard pushed to notice many changes over any other sporty Golf unless you happen to pick out the altered badging or the charging flap over the left-hand wheel arch. Actually, there are a few other visual giveaways for this plug-in model, and you'll notice most of those here at the front. Just above this GTE badge, there's a unique blue strip running across the radiator grille, blending into the lower, more menacing nose, which is a feature of this 8th generation Golf design. Full LED headlights fitted with the brand's intelligent IQ light matrix beams are standard, and an LED strip in each headlight mirrors the blue grille line when the daytime running lights are activated or when the driver approaches with the key. You might find the wide lower grille and fairy light LED front fog lamps to be a bit fussy, but there are some undeniably nice touches, like the way that the radiator grille illuminates as a continuation of the headlamp LED daytime running light strip. In profile here on the passenger side, the normal Signet trim designation badge you'd usually get on a Golf is replaced by the charging flap. And lower down, as on the GTI or the GTD, there are wider black side skirt seals than you get on a lesser Golf. These seals come together at either end of the car to form the front spoiler and the rear diffuser. Wheel rim sizes see 17-inch Richmond style alloys fitted as standard, with these larger 18-inch Bakersfield rims fitted as an option. Either way, sporty red brake calipers feature. As on an ordinary model, the side section's dominant base design element is this C-pillar, which, as usual with a Golf, visually propels the vehicle's body forwards. LED tail light clusters feature here at the rear, and the GTE lettering is now positioned centrally under the Volkswagen emblem. This sportier variant appears to be even flatter than less powerful Golfs, thanks to this roof spoiler, which extends significantly towards the rear and is painted in vehicle colour at the top with glossy black at the sides. Lower down, this sporty diffuser distinguishes this car from lesser Golfs, and in keeping with the PHEV vibe, there's no tailpipe in sight. Of course, what's much more important is what you can't see, the strong, stiff and light MQB chassis, which has been carried over from the previous generation model, with a few updates to the structure that sits on it, the adoption of aluminium for the rear subframe, for example. Okay, let's take a seat inside. Inside, as on the outside, the Golf GTE features blue highlights where the GTI would have red ones or a GTD would have silver. This includes the central spoke of the steering wheel and the seams and edging of the upholstery and trim. Plus, the blue vibes continue on into the screen colour featured with the displays of the brand's so-called Innovision Cockpit. This is a system which fuses a 10.25-inch digital instrument binnacle screen with a 10-inch centre dash screen. And it's that layout which gives the cabin of this second generation GTE model such a futuristic feel. There's certainly plenty to master with this digital setup on first acquaintance, but it's conservatively presented with easy to understand screen menus and separate capacitive buttons grouped in two shiny piano black clusters on either side of the steering wheel. As a result, even if you're of a maturity that predates the digital age, you shouldn't feel it to be all beyond you. Let's start with this Digital Cockpit Pro instrument binnacle screen, which includes GTE specific efficiency and range displays. Here's the one that you're likely to most frequently use. Now, this sees two small circular virtual screens flanking one large round central one, which has percentage charge and percentage power bands on the left, a rev counter on the right, and the digital speedo in the middle. As with any digital instrument screen these days, you can vary the format of this display via a steering wheel button, which is the view switch just here, as in other Volkswagen Group models which use the same basic setup. It offers a choice of 4 graphic layouts. These include a safety graphic, a full navigation map, and a digital speedo. Anything this instrument binnacle display can't tell you, how much that it can, will be covered off by that 10-inch centre dash touchscreen that we mentioned earlier. It does, of course, have all the usual infotainment functions, things like radio media, phone, navigation and assist system screens, plus an App Connect media display for the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring capability. But when you're not engaging with any of that, there's one screen format that you'll be using more than any other with this GTE variant, and it's this one, which shows your selected PHEV drive system modes, E-mode or hybrid, plus your current charge level. In addition, if you have the DCC Dynamic Chassis Control Adaptive Damping System fitted, as here, you'll have Eco, Comfort, Sport and individual option settings for that. We also like two other provided GTE specific screens, one for electric range, which shows how far you can go on all electric power, and the potential to increase that by altering various system settings, and the other for energy flow, which shows in real time what's being powered by what. Overall, there's certainly lots we admire about this whole Innovision Cockpit setup. It's built-in eSIM, which enables you to create a Wi-Fi hotspot. Its over-the-air update system, its online shop that will allow you to upgrade certain elements of this car's technology after you've bought it, and the way that you can hold and drag display icons to move them around. Or you can swipe across to a split screen that will enable you to, for example, display a sat-nav map, Bluetooth, car info and phone settings all at the same time. Less user-friendly is this curious slider at the bottom of the screen for volume control, which not everyone likes. If you hate this feature, you'll be pleased to find that more conventional volume buttons are provided on the steering wheel. With the voice setup, you preface anything you want to tell the car by either pressing on a steering wheel button or by saying, "Hello Volkswagen." It then responds with either "Yes please" or "What would you like to do?" and it reacts obediently to voice commands like "Go to Milton Keynes," activating navigation, or "I'm cold," activating the air conditioning. What it can't do, annoyingly, is enable you to alter key drive system features. Apparently the next generation hardware was signed off before the software engineers had properly perfected a way for the driver to be able to alter things like damping modes and safety system settings by voice. Now that's irritating because it means you have to take your eyes off the road and delve around in system submenus to do that. Even with this standard sized screen, you'll find yourself having to do that rather too often. Anyway, enough with screens and digitalization. What else do you need to know here? Apart from the fact that, as usual on a Golf, build quality is impeccable. Well, maybe that the ergonomics are predictably faultless too, and the seats, which come with integrated headrests and lumbar adjustment, they're brilliantly supportive. That smaller auto gear lever frees up space in the central console here for extra stowage too. On the subject of stowage, there's a big air-conditioned glove box. There are large door bins which can each hold a 500ml bottle of water, plus you get a lidded bin between the seats. There is a neat touch in this central cup holder here, which has an attachment that springs out to better clasp a smaller cup, although it does feel a bit flimsy. Plus there's a 12-volt socket nearby, there's a ticket clip in the driver's sun visor, and there's a storage net in the front passenger footwell. Not everything is ideal though. Volkswagen has forgotten to include an overhead sunglasses compartment. There are no media ports in the bin between the seats, and the ports that you do get above this recessed area in front of the gear stick, they are of the USB-C variety, so you may have to use an unsightly converter lead. Still, for every tiny foible, there are 2 or 3 other features you'll probably really like. Maybe the standard 30-colour ambient lighting system, or the way that the storage box is a flock line so your keys don't scrape around on the move. The material used for the upper section of the dashboard, which is lovely to the touch, and the central armrest, which tops the bin between the seats and which adjusts for 5 stages of height. The combination of these tiny front quarter lights and the slim A-pillars mean good frontward vision too. Over the shoulder vision, well, that's not quite as good. The large C-pillars rather get in the way, so it's just as well that rear parking sensors are standard fit. A rear view camera though isn't. Let's take a seat in the rear. Now these large square door openings make it easy to get in without having to lower your head. Thanks to the extra 16mm of length between the wheels with this MK8 design, there's a fraction more legroom than there was before. So a pair of 6-foot adults could now be accommodated reasonably here. There's certainly a little more space here than there would be in the kind of premium badged, family-sized PHEV compact hatches that a typical Golf GTE buyer might be considering, like the Mercedes A250e or the Audi A3 Sportback TFSI-E. It's worth pointing out though that the Skoda Octavia VRS plug-in model using the same powertrain as this Golf gives you loads more room. As we said with the previous generation Golf GTE model, we're disappointed at the height of this central transmission tunnel. It makes it so difficult for middle-seated passengers to be comfortably accommodated. Two people will be quite happy though, and they'll benefit from this fold-down central armrest with twin cup holders and twin-beamed overhead reading lights too. Seat back pockets are provided, plus on each seat back you get these neat couple of upper pouches too. There are twin USB ports, although again they're of the smaller USB-C variety. And with a 3-zone climate system fitted as standard, you get rear seat temperature controls too. Let's finish off this segment by taking a look in the boot, the catch for which, as usual, is activated by pushing this tailgate badge. The batteries for the electric motor have to be positioned somewhere, and the best place for them is under the cargo area floor here. As a result, you have to do without the normal model's adjustable height boot floor, and the 380 litres of luggage room that you get in a regular Golf becomes just 273 litres here. To give you some segment perspective, a Mercedes A250e plug-in model offers 310 litres. At least the room you do get here in this Golf GTE is quite usable, and 5 carry-on suitcases will just about fit if you squash them in. The wide hatch aperture and the low loading lip also help if you're trying to get heavy or bulky items inside. There is a 12-volt socket and 2 bag hooks, plus you do get a cool white boot light, the small left and right corner storage compartments, and a ski hatch so that longer items can be pushed through into the cabin. It's sad that because of the underfloor battery placement you can't have a spare wheel on this model even as an option, and it's also disappointing given this Volkswagen's premium aspirations that you don't get the 40-20-40 rear seat back split that you would find in a rival premium brand model. Pushing forward, the conventional 60-40 split rear bench that you do get frees up 1130 litres across a virtually flat load area. It seems a long time ago now that you could buy a Golf GTE for around £25,000 after the once available government grant had been taken into consideration. There's no government assistance for plug-in hybrids these days, of course, and Volkswagen pricing has risen considerably, all of which contributes to an eventual asking price for this car that was around £36,000 at the time of this test in spring 2021. Only this single trim level is offered. Well, only this single level of trim with the Golf GTE anyway. Volkswagen also offers much the same PHEV powertrain in a detuned 204 PS form in the alternative, rather less sporty looking Golf E hybrid model, which is slightly more affordable, priced from around £33,000 and also offered in a single state of trim. This allows the Golf to compete directly with e-hybrid 204 PS versions of Seat Leon and Skoda Octavia PHEV models, as well as the Audi A3 Sportback 40 TFSI-e, which also uses the lower output version of this plug-in powertrain. If you prefer this Golf GTE, then you'll find it priced very similarly to an Audi A3 Sportback 45 TFSI-e S-Line competition model with the same 245 PS version of this engine. Checking outside the VW group of brands also reveals potential tempt-away issues for a likely Golf GTE customer. The fact that you can have a premium badged PHEV compact hatch like Mercedes A250e for around £33,000 will be an obvious temptation for a potential customer here. Volkswagen will argue though that the Mercedes total output is 24 PS down on what you'll get in this Golf, and that if you spec'd up an A250e to GTE levels, the price difference would be marginal. Now that is true, but the performance of an A250e is just as good as a GTE, and it goes 4 miles further on a single charge. GTE money would also get you that Mercedes technology with the Stuttgart brand's swoopy, trendy CLA 4-door coupe body style in the form of the CLA 250e. Your other quality compact hatch PHEV options will tend to be SUVs, cars like BMW's X2 xDrive 25e, which costs from around £38,000, or Volvo's XC40 Recharge T4, which costs from around £39,000. In comparison with this GTE, apart from the crossover vibe, both those cars have the advantage of four-wheel drive. And if you don't care about that, then there's a front-driven Mercedes GLA 250e plug-in crossover, which costs from around £37,000. And there's more food for thought for a potential GTE customer on perusal of Volkswagen's own lineup. If you were prepared to settle for mild hybrid, non-plug-in electrified technology in this car, which of course wouldn't give you any electric-only driving capability, then the Golf 1.5-litre ETSI Dsg Automatic with almost equally sporty R-Line trim would save you over £7,000 over the cost of this GTE. Alternatively, if you want complete electric-only drive capability, then much the same kind of money as you'll spend on this GTE would get you a 58 kilowatt-hour version of Volkswagen's full battery-powered ID3 EV in comparably performing Pro Performance form. But as we've said time and time again when reviewing different versions of this Volkswagen hatch, there's nothing quite like a Golf. And if you agree when it comes to this GTE, then you're going to need to know exactly how generous Volkswagen has been with the standard specification here. So let's take a look at that now. And before we get into the GTE niceties, we should start off by covering the key core features which all Mark 8 Golf models now get. Things like full LED self-leveling headlights, adaptive cruise control, climate control air conditioning, and a wireless smartphone charging mat. Plus rear parking sensors and a load-through ski hatch too in that rear seat. Media provision across the range is taken care of by the brand's so-called Innovision Cockpit, a setup which fuses a 10.25-inch digital instrument binnacle with a 10-inch centre dash screen, both of which have GTE-specific e-driving elements. The centre dash screen offers a whole range of customisable menus and information, and a big 10-inch centre dash touchscreen for the Discover Media Navigation package. Now that comes with sat-nav, a 6-speaker DAB audio system and Bluetooth. It's permanently connected to the internet via an embedded eSIM, and that enables online music streaming and real-time traffic information, amongst other things. And also it allows for what Volkswagen calls an in-car shop. Now that lets you buy additional services over the air after vehicle purchase. Plus there's the CarNet App Connect system. Now that allows use of the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto MirrorLink systems, and those enable you to mirror the display of your smartphone onto that centre dash monitor. Up to 14 driver profiles can be saved on the infotainment system, settings such as radio stations, air conditioning, map and route preferences. They're all saved automatically according to whoever is driving. There is also a Wii Connect App which is available. Now that will allow you to interact with your GTE via your smartphone when you're away from it. So you'll be able to do things like lock or unlock the doors, you'll be able to remotely activate the horn and the indicators, you'll be able to get a vehicle status report, set the cabin ventilation so the car is cool or warm when you get into it, and those remote services can also help you to locate your GTE if you've gone and forgotten where you parked it. Talking of technology, there's a lot of standard driving tech too, principally the ACC Adaptive Cruise Control System, which incorporates predictive cruise control and uses images from a windscreen camera along with navigation data to adjust the car's speed ahead of bends and speed restrictions. Plus, of course, ACC can do all the usual things. It can adapt your Golf speed to the vehicles ahead, and in the event of a tailback, it can bring the car to a controlled stop and then start it off again without driver input. Also now standard on a Golf GTE is a bit of technology that Volkswagen is very proud of. It's Travel Assist setup, which enables so-called Level 2 autonomous driving at high speeds. This is a camera and radar sensor controlled assistance system that will autonomously accelerate, brake and steer your Golf while maintaining a safe distance to the vehicles ahead. It's basically a development of the previous traffic jam assist system, which could accelerate, brake, steer and maintain distance to the vehicles ahead too. But whereas that previous automatic longitudinal and lateral guidance system could only be used at up to 37 miles an hour, Travel Assist can almost completely control the car for you at speeds of up to 130 miles an hour, providing you keep your hands on the new capacitive steering wheel. The Travel Assist pack also includes a clever emergency assist setup, and that can take over driving duties completely if you become incapacitated. It'll steer the car to the side of the road and bring it to a safe and controlled stop. Another clever new standard integrated feature is Car2X, a system which communicates wirelessly with other Car2X enabled vehicles using Wi-Fi technology so as to share information and to brief your Golf's electronic systems automatically on traffic updates. So for example, if you're stuck in a traffic jam, the system will know before you do when the end of the jam is coming, and it'll get the adaptive cruise control ready to resume cruising speeds. And Car2X incorporates a hazard warning system which advises you of impending roadworks, of accidents and emergency vehicles. It can even detect when other cars in the system are performing panic stops in front of you, and in an emergency like that, it'll turn on your own brake lights even before you've reacted. That'll help avoid you being rear-ended. Of course, this being a premium Golf model, you'll want a few niceties, so you'll be pleased to find that GTE spec is based on the generously provided for R-line trim level. That gets you larger diameter brake discs with red calipers, rear privacy glass, heat for the steering wheel, a progressive steering system which makes low-speed manoeuvring easier, and a GTE bespoke driving profile selection driving mode setup with E-mode, hybrid, battery charge, battery hold and GTE setting options. There's also 3-zone climate control with rear passenger controls too, a 30-colour cabin ambient lighting system and an LED light strip across the radiator grille which creates continuous illumination with the headlights. On to GTE specific features. You get a GTE styling pack which gives you GTE design front and rear bumpers and a honeycomb front air intake with inset LED front fog lights. There's also 17-inch alloy wheels of the same Richmond design that you get on the Golf GTI, and LED rear tail lamps with sequential indicators, plus keyless entry, power folding mirrors and an E-Sound exterior sound generator system to alert pedestrians of your approach when you're moving all electrically in low-speed urban driving. You'll also get the brand's piercing IQ Light LED matrix system for the headlamps, which enables them to alter their beams via 22 separate LED lights which draw from GPS data, steering wheel angle and driving speed information, and they can alter their illumination based on the type of road you're on and the prevailing weather. Inside a Golf GTE you'll get sport seats in Jakara blue cloth, a unique GTE branded aluminium trimmed gear knob, black metal chrome decorative inserts there in the dash and in the front door panels, and also a heated leather trimmed 3-spoke multifunction capacitive branded steering wheel with touch sensitive buttons. Now to finish our perusal of standard spec for the GTE, let's tell you that the car also comes with 2 6-meter charging cables, a 16 amp AC Mode 3 cable for wall boxes and charge points, and a 10 amp Mode 2 mains charging cable. Enough on standard spec levels. What about options for your Golf GTE? Well, your starting point here, we think, should be the DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control Adaptive Damping System. That's a really significant feature if you're going to get the best from the drive dynamics of this car. The 18-inch wheel upgrade option is another common box that GTE customers will often want to tick. They're the Bakersfield style rims fitted to this test car. Here we also have fitted the head-up display, the digital key feature which will enable you to unlock the car with your smartphone, a rear view camera and the winter pack that gives you heated front seats and heated windscreen washer jets, plus heated rear seats. They can also be included. Now if this was our car and our budget was, well, flexible, we'd also want to look at adding Vienna full leather upholstery. Other features you may want to add include a park assist system that will automatically steer you into a space and a panoramic glass roof. Your Volkswagen dealer is also going to be keen for you to consider upgrading the 10-inch centre dash Discover Media Navigation System to improved Pro status, which gets you integrated gesture control and perhaps most notably the Wolfsburg brand's intuitive voice activation system. Now this can recognise common commands prefaced by the phrase "Hello Volkswagen." The Discover Media Navigation Pro option also includes what Volkswagen calls Wii Connect Plus preparation. And this makes it possible to integrate online traffic information into route guidance and to transfer online points of interest into the navigation system. Wii Connect Plus media services also deliver online access to a range of useful information like traffic reports, petrol station locations and parking spots. Bear in mind that you'll almost certainly be paying your Volkswagen dealer more for your choice of paint colour. Solid pure white is the only standard shade, so you're probably going to want to fork out for one of the metallic or the pearl effect shades. We have Dolphin Grey metallic here. If you really want to splash out, then there's the pricey premium signature Oryx white finish. What about practical options? Well, unfortunately you can't specify a spare wheel on this Golf variant, but you can of course add in a tow bar, and you can also add in roof bars, so roof boxes and holders for bikes, skis and snowboards can be installed on top. A bicycle carrier can also be added to the tow bar, and mud flaps are of course available too. For the boot area you might want to add in a reversible luggage compartment mat, or perhaps a luggage compartment tray or a load liner, or perhaps a luggage net to keep small items from flying around. Enough on options, let's now take a look at driver assist systems and safety provision. You'd expect some sort of autonomous braking system on a car of this kind these days. Volkswagen's is called front assist, and as usual with these kinds of setups, it scans the road ahead as you drive. If a potential collision hazard is detected, then you'll be warned. If you don't respond, or perhaps you aren't able to, then the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. For this second generation Golf GTE, this setup's city emergency braking system has been enhanced with predictive pedestrian protection. Now this is more specifically able to identify people or cyclists who might be about to inadvertently step into your path. Should this sort of situation happen, or if, for example, another driver suddenly brakes in front of you, further help is provided by a Swerve Support Emergency Assist steering system, which is automatically activated as soon as you have to avoid an obstacle. After visual and acoustic warnings, this will introduce targeted braking intervention from the assistance system, which will help to stabilise the car if you have to perform an evasive manoeuvre. Like every new Golf, this one also gets a lane assist lane keeping system that warns you when you stray out of your lane and applies gentle steering assistance to ease you back into it. In addition, there's distance display warning, which alerts you if you're getting too close to the vehicle in front. Plus, you'll also get traffic sign recognition, which pictures road signs as you pass them and then displays them on the centre dash screen. And road edge recognition too, which alerts you at speed if you're too close to the roadside edge or the curb. Rear cross traffic alert warns you of oncoming traffic when you're reversing out of a space. And also included with GTE spec is a side assist blind spot system, which stops you from dangerously pulling out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. In addition, there is a clever emergency assist setup which can take over driving duties completely if you become incapacitated. It'll steer the car to the side of the road and it'll bring it to a safe and gradual stop. All of that is included in addition to all the more usual features which come fitted across the Golf range, and they've helped to justify this car's 5-star Euro NCAP safety test showing. There are twin front, side and curtain airbags, although disappointingly you don't also get an extra one to protect the driver's knees. There are of course ISOFIX child seat fastenings on the rear bench, plus there is an active bonnet, a sensor controlled pedestrian protection system which raises the bonnet away from the engine compartment in the nightmare scenario of an impact with a pedestrian, and that's to reduce injuries. We also like the inclusion of an automatic post-collision braking system. Now this recognises when an impact has occurred and it brakes the car to stop it being uncontrollably propelled into the oncoming traffic. It's also worth mentioning that one of the features of the Wii Connect app that we mentioned earlier is an emergency call e-call SOS system, which in the event of an accident where the airbags are triggered will automatically alert the rescue services with your exact GPS location. Other conventional safety features include the normal ESC stability control and ASR traction control systems, plus MSR engine braking control that will stop you skidding if you change down abruptly on a slippery surface. If you do get into a skid, a DSR steering assistance feature will help you steer out of it, and you get an ABS braking system that's further assisted by CBC cornering brake control through the bends, plus an HBA hydraulic braking assistant, which helps to reduce stopping times when you really slam on all the anchors in an emergency. Plus, all Golfs get a hill hold function to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, plus tyre pressure monitoring and a driver alert system which will warn you if the sensors detect drowsiness. Safety options include a curtain airbag system that gives side airbags for front and rear passengers, and what Volkswagen calls proactive occupant protection, which uses sensors from the front assist setup to prepare the car to help survive an impact if those sensors deem a collision is inevitable. That'll mean your belts will be instantly pre-tensioned, and the windows and the sunroof, if it's fitted, will be immediately closed. It's all very reassuring. First, the headlines. Volkswagen claims an unlikely sounding best possible 235.4 mpg combined cycle fuel figure for this car, along with a squeaky clean CO2 return of up to 26 grams per kilometre. For reference, the alternative Golf E Hybrid 204 PS version of this model manages 235.4 miles per gallon and 21 grams per kilometre of CO2. Every plug-in hybrid model quotes such astounding statistics, and in every case, the real-world driving reality is very different. Still, it's hardly Volkswagen's fault that, rather unforgivably, the WLTP testing procedure still hasn't got its head around how to evaluate the efficiency of plug-in hybrid cars. Mind you, their problem is easy to appreciate. I mean, how do you work out the likely returns of a model like this? To explain the difficulty, let's take two wildly divergent scenarios. In the first, you're nipping down to the shops in no hurry. The hybrid system is topped up with battery charge for full electric driving. That obviously means that you would consume no fuel and you would emit no emissions on your journey. The second scenario, though, is very different. Here, you've exhausted the electric-only range this car can give you, WLTP quoted by Volkswagen at 40 miles or 44 miles for the e-hybrid variant, but in our experience, it's more like 30. You're very late for an appointment, or maybe you're late for the school run, and you have a long section of empty cross-country motoring to complete in order to catch up time. Now, in that situation, pushing the petrol engine to its maximum, you might be lucky to see, 30 miles per gallon? What it all boils down to is that your actual returns with the Golf GTE will end up pitching themselves somewhere between those two extremes, and they'll be heavily influenced by your lifestyle and by the way that you drive the car. If your motoring life is mainly made up of the kind of short journeys that can be completed in all-electric silence, but you don't want the kind of range anxiety that you might get with Volkswagen's all-electric ID3 or ID4 models, cars limited to a real-world range that would probably be around 200 to 250 miles, then one of these might well be perfect. You could certainly be a virtual stranger at your local filling station. If, though, like many business buyers, you spend your life covering long distances on major roads and motorways, then the truth is that a comparable Golf GTD diesel might ultimately prove to be a cleaner and more frugal choice. For comparison, Volkswagen quotes the automatic 2-litre TDI 200 PS model as being able to deliver up to 54.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and up to 137 grams per kilometre of CO2. For us, though, the GTE technology's benefits remain as compelling here as they are with this model's mechanically identical VW Group design stablemates, the Audi A3 Sportback 45 TFSIe, the Skoda Octavia VRS IV, and the Cupra Leon E Hybrid. As with those cars in ordinary motoring, if you leave the PHEV system in its hybrid setting, where it decides how best to manage its power, you should get in excess of 50 miles per gallon on a regular basis. Your other e-driving tools lie within the menu of the 10-inch Center Stack Discover Media Navigation Infotainment screen. Its e-display section has two useful options: energy flow, which shows you in real time what's being powered by what, and electric range, which shows you just how far you can go on your all-electric power and offers the potential to increase that by altering various system settings. If you switch to the data section, you'll find three further tabs: since start, long term, and since refuel, each of which give you a fuel range and an electric range readout. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, in the vehicle menu, you'll find an electric drive option that allows you to set the energy recuperation in high, auto, or low, thus maximizing the brake energy harvesting that will prolong your battery charge. If you proactively use all these e-driving aids, you should find this hybrid Golf to be a frugal driving partner with a potential combined electric and petrol range of around 600 miles. That's despite the fact that the normal Golf's 50-litre fuel tank falls to one of 40 litres in size here. If you have a long trip that'll end in a large town or city, then you can get even better returns in this Volkswagen by using the hybrid system in its clever hybrid hold mode, which will conserve the car's electric charge until you activate it at journey's end. There is also a hybrid charge option, which can use a petrol engine to proactively recharge the hybrid system's electrical elements as you drive, although the extra fuel that you tend to use doing that tends to cancel out the battery benefits. The battery is also charged as you move by brake energy regeneration, which recycles energy that you would otherwise lose when you were braking or cruising. The extent to which you can charge this car up from the mains, that is also obviously going to make quite a difference to your overall running costs. Doing so inevitably takes a lot less time than it would in a comparable full electric car like those Volkswagen ID3 or ID4 models I mentioned earlier, or maybe something like a Nissan Leaf. That's obviously because the batteries of a plug-in hybrid car like this one are much smaller. Charging the 13 kilowatt hour battery takes 3 hours 40 minutes using the 3.6 kilowatt wall box that you'll want to install in your garage. If you are limited to a normal 3-pin domestic plug though, it'll be 5 hours. When it's plugged in, a charge status page opens up in the screen between the binnacle dials. To use a public charging point, you'll need to get yourself a swipe card from your local council, and that may or it may not include the parking fee and the electricity you'll be using. Back at home, the price of that electricity will also, of course, be another influencing cost factor. Plug the car in, and at the grille socket you'll get the choice of either immediate charging or, better, a timer controlled charging setup that you can program using the dashboard infotainment screen's e-manager display. You can monitor the timer or even activate it using a downloadable smartphone Wii Connect Plus remote app, which also allows you to preset the climate control to reach a certain temperature at a predetermined point. That'll mean that in extreme temperatures, you won't have to draw heavily from the battery in warming up or cooling down the car once you start off. You'll obviously want to use the charge timer to juice up the car at off-peak rates, and if you are the kind of eco-friendly buyer that Volkswagen thinks will be drawn to this car, then you might also favour a power supplier with energy created from renewable sources. Then there is also tax, of course. Those unlikely sounding official fuel and CO2 figures that I quoted at the beginning, they may realistically be pie in the sky, but the important thing is that the government believes them. That's why, as you'll probably know, hybrids attract a much lower benefit-in-kind taxation rating than diesels do. In this case, it's a BIK rate of just 6%. Obviously, that's not as good as the 0% rating you get with an all-electric Volkswagen ID3, but it's a heck of a lot better than the rating of up to 29% applied to a mild hybrid Golf 1.5 litre ETSI, or the 30% rating applied to a GTD Golf diesel. Bear in mind that, as usual, all those groupings rise by one level each year for the first 3 years of ownership. To give you an overall tax perspective, at the time of this test, which is in spring 2021, at the first year 6% level, a GTE would set a 40% taxpayer back £862.92. That's compared to £2,602.60 for a base life-spec Golf 1 litre TSI and £3,133.62 for a mid-range style-spec Golf 2 litre TDI 150 PS diesel. Still wondering why people pay more for a PHEV? Well, you do the maths. What else? Well, we like the fact that misfueling protection is standard across the range, so you won't be able to accidentally put diesel in your GTE. There is reasonably affordable insurance too, rated at Group 27E. That's the same as Golf GTD, but it's a group below the Golf GTI. And depreciation figures ought to stack up extremely well too, with independent experts reckoning that owners should enjoy much the same kind of retained value that they'd get from an equivalent Golf GTD diesel, about 48% of your original purchase price back after the usual 3 years and 60,000 mile ownership period. What about servicing? Well, as usual with Volkswagen models, there's a choice of either fixed or flexible servicing packages. Now you'll choose the fixed approach if you cover less than 10,000 miles a year, and with this the car will generally be looked at every 12 months. If your daily commute is more than 25 miles though, and your Golf will regularly be driven on longer distance journeys, then you'll be able to work with the flexible regime, and that can see you travelling up to 18,000 miles between garage visits, or every 2 years, whichever comes around first. Less impressive is the 3-year 60,000 mile warranty cover. Volkswagen offers 100,000 miles on its vans, but providing that on its cars wouldn't give the dealers so much of an opportunity to sell extended warranty packages. There's one for 4 years and 75,000 miles, or if you plan to see a bit more of the world in your Golf GTE, then there's a 5-year 90,000 mile package. Whatever your decision, your car will come with 3 years of pan-European roadside assistance, which has no mileage restriction. The paintwork warranty, that lasts for 3 years, and as you'd expect, this car is protected by a 12-year anti-corrosion guarantee. The battery, it should be said, is covered by its own separate 8-year warranty. So, the best of both worlds at the push of a button. Is that what we've got here? Well, pretty much yes. In a formula here, very much brought up to date, courtesy of a larger battery, sharper looks, and lots of extra technology. Now, the Volkswagen Group weren't the first to bring us the benefits of plug-in motoring, but arguably they were the first to really perfect it, or at least to perfect it as far as is possible within the limits of current battery technology. As a result, if you've never thought much of electric mobility as an automotive solution, here's a car we think might convert you. It's not perfect, of course. There are a few dynamic downsides with the extra weight of the PHEV mechanicals, and there are rivals in this segment, notably the slightly cheaper Mercedes A250e that can take you a bit further on a single charge, although the alternative lower powered Golf E hybrid variant will get a bit closer to that A-Class model's range figure. Either way, quite a few potential customers for this car might well be swayed by direct rivals, principally, we suspect, either the Mercedes that we just mentioned or by an Audi A3 Sportback TFSI-E, which is similarly priced to this Volkswagen. Still, if you can resist those alternatives, there's lots to like here. The Golf GTI vibe mixed with an uber dose of sense and sensibility, creating the kind of compelling combination that you'll rarely find in a family car. Everything here is so straightforward, it's just so normal. Just leave the thing in its hybrid auto setting and you'll get diesel-like fuel economy with a real surging turn of pace when you need it. Even if you never once plugged this car in, you'd probably be perfectly happy with it. So, no, you don't have to press buttons and select menus to enjoy and benefit from GTE motoring. But devoted owners will want to do that. These people will see ownership as being all about mastering and getting the most from the plug-in hybrid concept. For them, there'll be nothing normal about what this Volkswagen can do. They'll talk about its silent all-electric operation, or about running costs that decimate their annual tax payments, and see a potential 3-figure range achievable from every gallon. Or maybe the way in which, when it's used for short journeys, it can make fuel station visits a thing of the past. It's all deceptively unique and it's rather futuristic in a car very much for today.